Well, hey there everyone, Andy Spoons here. I hope this finds you all very well. I posted a photo yesterday on my Instagram account, basically just kind of running through what I'm planning to take with me to Canada for a month. I'm heading there at the end of the week, and it's not a carving trip by any means. It's just a family trip. My family's already over there, and I'm heading over there to meet them for a month. But being who I am, I obviously want to make sure for a month that I have enough tools that I can, just kind of keep my hands busy. If there are some orders that come in, I can, carve those and send them off while I'm over in Canada. And so I had some people ask me to just give a bit of a rundown, in a bit more detail, because the photos, can only tell you so much. And so I thought I would just give you a really simple rundown of what I'm taking and why. Obviously, the main factors that are coming into play here are weight and efficiency and joy. So I want to make sure that whenever I'm picking up a tool, well, firstly, I want to make sure that when I'm traveling there, I'm not paying anything for excess baggage. So it's got to be light. It's got to fit in my main undercarriage stuff. I have also had people ask me about knives and things like that. These are woodworking tools. That's, something that you need to make very clear when you're speaking to airport security and all of that kind of stuff. I do also bring some sealed wooden spoons with me, some work, just so that when they do invariably open everything up, which happens every time I fly, and that's fine. But when you just say you're a spoon carver and you don't have any spoons that you've carved, it can be quite confusing to just a random security person when they find an axe in your bag. So it's good to make sure that you have everything very clear and understandable for people who aren't familiar with the craft, which is fair enough because it's pretty niche. So yeah, weight, efficiency, and joy. And so let's kind of just run through. Let's start with the big stuff. Obviously, I'm going to take an axe. The lightest axe that I have in my collection that I do really enjoy using is my Kaltoff small carver. It's an absolutely incredible piece of tooling, perfectly balanced. It's a little light if I were to be using it every day. I like things that are kind of further up into the high 800 gram mark, 9 to a kilo even. My large carver, my Grand Force Brook carver is about a kilo. But this is right under the kind of 700 mark. I think the head itself is 6, so it's actually, it's quite a light axe, but perfect for this application. So that's the axe. For a saw, I am bringing a slightly bigger saw just so that I can kind of do everything that I need to. This is my Silky Big Boy, the 360 tooth, so it's a pretty aggressive tooth. This is just, I'm heading up further north in British Columbia to hang out with some friends who have property, and if they happen to have some stuff that I can just kind of get into and cut down, that gives me that. It also means that I can do some smaller work with it as well if I want. And then as a little bit of an auxiliary, I don't need a Tucker cam, but I know that the carving that I'm going to be doing, this is where it comes into joy. I love using this tool. This is my Belzeboo Crafts Hades 50 on a handle that I've had for years and years now. This was an old chair leg that I actually cut and repurposed, an oak chair leg back in Vancouver. And so this has some really special memories to it, and I just want to make sure that when I'm carving, I'm, roughing out bowls and things like that as quickly as possible so I can just get to the fun stuff. And this has a lot of history to it, so I will be enjoying bringing this along. So those are the large tools. That's the big stuff out of the way. Let's get some of the kind of more boring but necessary stuff, and then I'll get to the knives and my smaller hook knives. I'm bringing 2 small packs here, and this is basically just first aid and sharpening supplies. So in this one, it's just a couple of plates from my spoon crank sharpening system. It's wrapped up in a little leather bib. Just the dowels you can see there. It's just some dowels for the hook knives and some plates, abrasives for my Sloyd knives. The abrasives, I believe, for both start around the 400 grit and go up to about the 3000 grit, something like that. It's basically just, you know, if I happen to get a bad chip or a nick in something, or I need to do some, you know, harder timber work, this can get me from a nearly destroyed blade, obviously, you know, tarmac and all of that kind of stuff notwithstanding. This can get me from a pretty badly chipped blade, I would say. If I really had to kind of reset the edge, that would be fine. In this one, I have my strop. I have one little chip carving knife, because again, you know, I might not have time to do a bunch of spoon carving, but I might have some, you know, evenings where I can do a little bit of chip carving or just practice that kind of stuff. It's not something that I'm super well versed in, so, you know, you always want to be learning. Inside here, I also have my strop and, well, two different strops, both strops. And then on the back, I would argue the most important thing to bring is all of my first aid. So I have, you know, bandages, alcohol wipes, little compression bandage, some sterile gauze strips. You never know, right? And it's better to be safe, I think. You know, there's no point in sugarcoating the fact that these are all sharp things. So sharp things can interact with skin in a pretty negative way. I'm also bringing just a small tin of the RMP Finish wood wax. It's the only wax I use. This tin is going to last me more than enough with the time that I'm there. I'm bringing a burnishing rod from the Wood Tamer. It's porcelain, but really solid. I kind of always have it in this kit anyway. Yeah, and then, you know, there's a Sharpie in here. It's pretty by the book. And this is all just in a little Summit Gear kind of bug out pack, I guess. Yeah, and so that's that first aid stuff. Don't neglect that. Make sure that you do have your first aid with you, that you're bringing that pack with you, because it's as important, you know. Make sure that you have all of your bases covered. So now we come to what I think most people are most interested in, and fair enough, because, you know, this was something that I wanted to really think about. This tool roll, I've had people ask me about this. This was made by a very good friend of mine that I work with out in the track. His name is Joel. He doesn't do this for a living, but he and I did a little trade where I made him a rice paddle, and he was taking apart his old swag and asked if I wanted a tool roll. I said absolutely, and so he ended up stitching. So this is an old swag that he's repurposed, hard canvas. And then inside, this is what I would say is my my absolute essentials kit. I could slim it down even more, and I do when I take things out to work, out into the national parks, if I'm doing carving out there. But for a month, I want to make sure that I have all of my bases covered for, you know, again, this is joy, right? I want to make sure that I'm focusing on the joyful aspect of carving, and that I'm not just being completely frugal. So I've got a pencil. The pencil that I use, I have had people ask me about this. I've used a lot of different pencils on green wood, and this is the Faber-Castell Polychromos. It's not a really waxy pencil. I won't get bogged down in the details. A lot of people say, you know, use the ones that you can write on glass and all that kind of stuff. I don't like a lot of waxy pencils on my green wood. I like something that just gets the line there while I can axe it out, and then that's it. Anyway, I've got a Sharpie, and then I'm only bringing 2 Sloyd knives and 3 hook knives, and I will take them all out and I'll run you through what I'm taking with me. So the 2 Sloyd knives I'm bringing, they're both from my friend Frank at Woodland CC. I can't recommend his work enough. Obviously, it's the only knives that I'm taking. I stand by them. I really think they're special. I am bringing the old 85mm full tang that I have been using for quite a long time now. You can see it's had a pretty aggressive, you might not be able to see it, but pretty aggressive flat over hollow grind. This is great for finishing and detail and roughing, and that's what I'm going to mainly keep it for, just for finishing cuts. And then I am also bringing, again from Woodland, is his new 105. This is an absolute workhorse of a knife. I have talked about it not too long ago. I've been really, really impressed with how this is working, how it's feeling. I really enjoy the fact that even when I'm choked up, there's still plenty of blade to access. I do tend to carve quite a lot with my hands choked up against the blade, which I find on a small blade means you're not left with much. So when you're doing those long pull cuts, or if you're really pushing over the back of the bowl, you can kind of run out of blade. And I will say this is about as long as anyone should ever need to use for spoon carving. It's longer than you need, absolutely. But I personally, I've got quite spindly fingers, big hands, and so having a longer blade just means that I have a little bit more dexterity. I also find, this is just my own personal opinion, with a longer blade, you tend to go further without needing to sharpen, because you can kind of access multiple parts of the Sloyd. This is kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, but I find that I can use one knife for my roughing and my kind of slightly finer and then my absolute finishing cuts without needing to strop as much, because I can basically work my way up the blade. Again, I can get into that in more detail in a different video. But that is the kind of larger material knife. So those two Sloyds. And then hook knives, really simple. I'm not thinking about this too much, and no surprises. The two main ones that I'm bringing are from Miguel at Belzebu as well. This one is my own signature hook with Miguel that we designed quite a few years ago, called the Maphis. He has since taken the design and kind of improved it and changed it slightly over time, which I think he's done an absolutely wonderful job of. I've handled these myself. He has sent me this one not too long ago, and then this is kind of like a prototype of his that was just similar style, but I ended up handling it as well. And so these two are just really good roughing tools. I could get into finishing cuts with them. Really nice kind of neutral angle. And then the final hook that I'm bringing is my matte white, what we kind of, when he sent it to me, describe as a faceting hook. So I'm left-handed, and this is a right-handed hook, and it's quite flat, quite shallow in the hook, as you can see. And I use it for push cuts for the back of the bowl so that we can get nice, chunky facets out of things. If you've followed me for any period of time, you know that's something that I really enjoy doing. And so I want to make sure that, if I feel like just mixing things up, again, the joy quotient of this whole kit, I want to make sure that I'm creating things that bring me joy and that, that I can be kind of adding into the world in a joyful sense. But yeah, and then it all is going back into this roll, like I mentioned, from my friend Joel. And what I will end up doing, I won't pack it all away right now because I'm still doing a bit of work. But once it's all wrapped away, these 3 bags will all go into just a little Cedar Summit dry bag. I always have these on me. They're fantastic for, especially when I go out into the bush. If it's raining, I can make sure all of my tools are wrapped away just in case I don't end up bringing them out, or in case, for whatever reason my bag falls in the creek, the tools will stay perfectly dry. So that's obviously very important. And then I guess the final thing that I'll be bringing is just a kind of collection of eating spoons. Again, good to have in the pack so that people actually know why you have all this sharp stuff in your bag. And, you know, maybe I'll sell a few of these while I'm over there and I can still jump to the post office, or I might end up giving these to friends if we're staying with them, or, you know, friends and family, all of that kind of stuff. So it's good to have a little bit of, you know, product with you, I suppose. But that's it. And so all of that, you know, that would probably come in at definitely under 2 kilos. So it's quite light, you know, in the grand scheme of things. And it will give me all of the options that I need to be able to, you know, do what I love. But yeah, I hope this has been helpful, and please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments if you have any questions, more specifically about traveling with tools, or, you know, sourcing timber on the other side. The short answer is I don't know, and I'll just be accessing timber wherever I find it. Again, that's why I have the handsaw, so that, you know, if I happen to be walking down the street and there's some cherry from a council cleanup or something like that, I can just throw that in the backpack. But yeah, please let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. If you haven't and you would like to, please consider subscribing to the channel. Feel free to jump over to andyspoons.com for any spoons. There's still some t-shirts there as well. And all of your support it really does mean the world to me. Obviously because it helps me pay the bills, but also because it just, you know, it allows me to send my work out to, you know, everywhere in the world, and it really does mean a lot. So yeah, in the meantime, I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you again very soon.